This
I'll open the
conference will
meeting with
now
the
be
Pledge of
recorded.
Allegiance, please.
I'm sorry, you talked over the recording and I didn't hear what you said.
Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to
the
the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
republic
for
which it stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all. Mr. Elston,
Present.
Mr. Kimes,
Here. Present.
Mr. Malagranda,
Here.
Mr. McKinnon,
Here.
Ms. Morgan, Mrs. O'Rourke.
Here.
In the absence of the president, I request a motion to appoint a president pro tem for the meeting.
This is Mike McKinnon. I will appoint Julie O'Rourke as President Pro Tem. Motion to appoint
Second.
Who made the motion, please?
Mike McKinnon.
And the second?
Paul Elson.
And who did you present?
Julie O'Rourke.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, Julie.
Okay, and Julie, just so you know, when you act as President Pro Tem, you can vote in the capacity as trustee, or you can vote in the capacity as village president to break a tie, but you cannot vote in both capacities. So you have to decide at the beginning of the meeting which way you're going to vote. I can tell you typically,
Okay,
typically the trustee will vote as a trustee because then they're able to vote on everything. It's totally up to you.
yep, I will vote as a trustee.
Okay.
We need to account for all these people because I've got a name I don't know over here. Beyond in addition to the trustees, I have Attorney Gaziano. I have Mrs. Simons, Mrs. Bennett, Ms. Parent, and Mr. Inskull. Who else is there?
Jeff White and Nicholas Half.
Anyone else?
Got Seth Gronwald too.
Sorry. You're in the middle. I should have seen you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a quorum, 5 of 6 trustees present. If I mess up, somebody just correct me here. I believe number 4 on the agenda is a non-issue in light of COVID-19. Need to vote on that or discuss that. Is there any conflict of interest today?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, no conflicts of interest. How about any changes in the agenda?
Yes, I would like to add one item of new business regarding sidewalks, driveways, curbs, and gutters.
Sidewalks, driveways, and
Curb and gutters.
Okay, anything else from anyone? Does that require a motion or is that just get
Yes.
added?
no, well, we need to, no, we did. That's new business.
Normally there will be the approval. Number 7 is the approval of the agenda. So
So can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Mike McKinnon will make that motion.
Second?
Paul Elson, second.
Okay, all in favor of the amended approval of the agenda?
Aye. Aye.
Julie, was that Mr. Kimes was the second?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Mike McKinnon would recommend moving item number 3 out of the consent agenda.
Would that be item C?
Item 3, be D3.
Oh, D3.
Okay, somebody tell me what I'm supposed to do.
I don't know.
Well, if he
Well-
is,
I'm just recommending, I don't understand all the implications and whether finance has removed it, so I guess I would just like to not pass item D3 with the consent agenda, and maybe we can move that down as an item of business for the finance discussion.
Okay,
that's fine. And just so you know that those are the bills that, the monthly bills that get provided to President Eubank. There was I had submitted them, and that's you have copies of them. I had submitted them to Kelly Simons on Wednesday, and he wasn't able to get them to Sally Bennett until Thursday, and that's why Frank had asked them to be on the consent agenda. But they certainly can be discussed at a different place on the agenda if you like. So if you,
Yeah, I'd like a few minutes of conversation, so if we can just put that D3 just down to the finance committee so we can talk about that a couple minutes, and that way it's reflected in the minutes.
sure.
any other changes recommended for the consent agenda?
Mike McKinnon will make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item number D3.
And can I have a second, please?
Mr. Elson, second.
All in favor of the
No,
approved?
no. Mr. Elson,
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan, Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes,
sorry.
Yeah, Julie,
have a new
anytime
caller.
there'll be approval of money, then Sally will do a roll call vote.
okay.
You have a new caller.
Hi,
Can you
Denise
call her
Sparacino here.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Denise Sparacino with the Winnebago Historical Society.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee O'Rourke too, typically when there's a motion and a second, then you would ask for any discussion. But what we've had so far really didn't lend itself much to discussion, but some future ones may.
Okay. Okay, public comment. We did have someone sign up for public comment, but I do not think that they are on the line. Jeremy? So I think we just move on.
That's correct. And just probably for the record that the person identified themselves on the form as Jeremy, no last name as I recall. And it had
Right.
to do with permitting utility vehicles on the roads inside the village. Just so the record's clear.
Okay.
Okay, we move on to Public Works. Mike?
Okay, both items on the agenda are regarding the Rebuild Illinois Water Main Project, which we just had the public hearing regarding. And the next two items have not yet gone through committee. So at this point, I would like to make a motion for passage of the resolution committing matching funds as is included in the packet. Or excuse me, that might have come in from, it was either in the packet or it came in from an email by Mary separately.
That actually, I believe, was in the packet. I see it.
I have a question. Is that a roll call?
Yes, because it's money.
Okay, but we first need a second.
I failed you. You gotta wait.
So that was a motion, not from committee, but Mike McKinnon, so.
And Paul Elson, second.
And is there any further discussion on that topic?
But we need a resolution number. If we did it, I missed it.
2020-07R. And this is the one for the,
Matching funds.
Yeah, the committee, it reads resolution committing local funds.
I got it.
And that's what, 200 and,
47-127-84.
It says on here 24. Am I missing something? I'm reading on the actual resolution,
47-127-24.
24. Okay.
and again, if we are not fortunate to receive the grant, and we have no obligation to spend those funds, but those funds would be required. And is it not correct, Seth, or maybe Mary, you can add, if we would scale that back, if we have to scale the project back, as long as we commit the 25% of a scale back project, is that still acceptable?
I believe
Go ahead, Jeff.
if you're committing the 25%, that means that project as is. We might be able to have a conversation with him in the future. You know, if the village is selected for grant dollars, about whether or not they would allow you to do something like that. But to my knowledge, you know, at this point, it would be you know, I believe it would be a no.
Okay. And I think, you know, even though there's some uncertainty with the budget, with the relative to COVID and everything, that's being funded in the, you know, the water system, which is a separate entity, I think we're on a little bit more solid footing over there.
And then Seth, is
Yeah,
this something that I see it provides for signature by Frank Eubank as the village president? Is this something that you would be submitting before he would be back from vacation? So we would have this signed by the president pro tem?
Yes. Yep.
And will you be then just lining that out or just submitting a different one with different signature information?
However it's executed the way that it needs to be is good with me. I just need to have it signed. If that means it needs to be lined out or just edited and signed by Julie, it doesn't matter to me how it's done.
Okay, so they won't give you a problem if it, because I know that this is your resolution, not mine, but so that they won't have a problem if it's lined out with the name of a president pro tem.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Mike, just one quick thing, I guess, just so you're aware, I guess if the village were in a position where they, you know, for some reason were awarded the grant and were unable to come up with the local match dollars, it is always a possibility to pass the grant dollars back, you know, as a worst case scenario. So it's, you know, it's used to options.
Yeah, I'm hoping none of those are issues, but on the other hand, is when you commit funds for something, we want to make sure we've kind of looked at all the potential issues.
Right, understood.
You ready for roll call?
I got one, Paul, I got one more question. I'm not sure I understood, Mike, exactly what you're asking, but if the bids come in for the project less than what this resolution is committing, what you're saying is we're still only required to commit 25% of the actual cost. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. So if
Yeah,
the bids come in less than this, just an estimate, if the bids come in less than that, we're not on the hook for that 247.
No. That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
And possibly Trustee Elson presented my issue better than I did, so that was kind of the path I was kind of looking at a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I assumed you were talking more of paring the project back and making it smaller. So no, that appreciate the clarification. That's a good point.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan, Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Elson.
Yes.
Okay, item B, Trustee McKinnon would make a recommendation for passage of the Fair Housing Ordinance as was presented by the village attorney. I suppose you'll need a number on that one too.
2020-08R.
Mr. Elson, second.
That's
Sally, if
just an
that's
all
an-
in favor.
Sally, if that's an ordinance, would that still have the R, or is that only for resolutions?
I thought it was a resolution. It says resolution on the top of the page.
It is.
It says that is a resolution and not an ordinance for
That's
the
correct.
fair housing.
It either has to be, you can pass a resolution or an ordinance, and every other one that I had seen was done by way of a resolution.
Okay, no problem. I just happen to be reading off the agenda, not the actual resolution at the moment, so that's what kind
Oh,
of.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yep.
Let's
Yep,
just
got
want to
it.
make sure. I'd rather fix it now rather than later.
You're right.
Did we have a second to that already?
Paul
Yes,
Elson.
Mr. Elson.
Yes.
Okay, and I just want to make sure you're looking at the correct one, because I had done one and then I found another one I liked better and I incorporated some more information. Because I thought the first one was kind of weak as far as what the village was really going to do for fair housing. So the document that is the pertinent one, and it is in I have it in the packet as the last document, the 2-page fair housing resolution that just gives a little bit more detail. It did provide for signature by Trustee McKinnon, because at the time that's what Frank had indicated was going to happen. So we can just change that accordingly. In fact, I had another one run with Julie O'Rourke's name.
Okay, any other discussion on that resolution? Is this just a vote then?
The roll call, right?
Yes.
You ready?
Ready for roll call, Sally?
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan, Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Elson,
Yes.
Mr. Kimes.
Yes.
I have to say, I don't remember what Julie said in the beginning. Are you going to vote as a president or as a trustee?
Trustee,
Okay, that's what I've been doing, and then I panicked.
you're
Sorry.
good. Okay, moving on to
That is-
village. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to mention that is it from Public Works until I touch upon the item that I asked to be part of new business.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Beth, I think your report was in the packet. Do you have anything?
Nope. You guys have probably seen everything going on right now as far as the work that's being done on McDaman Circle and the chip sealing project. The only other stuff is the Rebuild Illinois application that we're working through, and working with Mary on the Winnebago Highlands complaint.
Okay. Thanks, Seth. Community development, John?
Yes. First of all, I did talk to the code enforcement officer this morning, Casper Manheim, and he said the things are going along quite well. The people who have received letters for high grass and so forth have been really taken care of. He is sending out a couple of letters today covering a couple other issues, but nothing that big. I did talk to Dick Maderas today, and he said that we have had over 500 building permits for the purpose of garages. Now, let's start with the number 2, ordinance establishing duties and compensation of building official, discussion, effect, and dates of permit fees. This was discussed and so forth. Mike, I'll see how you're coming on that.
Well, I have done nothing since we talked about it last. I did route out to everybody on the board, but my current recommendation was, as far as compensation to the inspectors, as well as what permit fees would then be. I have not received any feedback, good, bad, or indifferent to that. My recommendation would be, if there's no recommendations on changes of what I've drafted, that we take item 2 and 3 together and recommend that the village attorney update the final draft of that to include the information as presented, and have the ordinance updated, and with the vote in the July meeting for updating that ordinance and revoking ordinance 400. And I would further recommend that basically those fees be effective August 1st. So if there's no counter opinion on that, I'd be prepared to make a motion to that effect.
And I would second it.
Any
Any
further
discussion?
discussion?
What is this motion doing?
Well, I didn't form it yet. Now, if there's no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a motion that we'll make a motion that we adopt the inspector compensation and the permit fees as in the draft that I routed to everybody, and we authorize the village attorney to update the existing ordinance for action in July. We make the new compensation and permit fees effective August the 1st. Is that too wordy, or were you able to get that?
I'm getting it. I think I got it.
Okay, and I seconded it. Is there any discussion on that? No discussion?
I'd just like to say, like to thank Mike for all your work on this. The compensation, as far as I can tell, looks very fair and thorough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anybody else have any comments?
We need to vote on this motion.
Okay, let's vote.
You ready?
I am.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan, Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Elson,
Yes.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda.
Yes.
I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
In number 1, Mr. Kimes said that Dick had approved or had over 500 garages.
Probably roofing permits would be.
Roofing.
Garage roof permits? Okay, thank you.
They were roofing,
Okay,
right?
thank- Yeah, roofing.
Got it. Thank you.
The appraisal of the properties, Mary, what have you got any input from Frank? Has he talked to Mr. Whitehead or anybody?
I have not heard anything from Frank about this matter since we talked about it at the committee of the whole.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to put number 5 and number 8 will go together. cocktails and mixed drinks to go in the outdoor dining and restaurant bars. Discussion?
Okay, I think we need to consider those separately, though, and the reason I say that is, I guess you could talk about them, but when we deal with them, that whole cocktail and mixed drinks to go, as I read the materials that were provided, if the village wants to opt
I'm not
out of
hearing
it,
any.
we have to have an ordinance to say we want to opt out. So I guess I just don't want to get it mixed in the shuffle.
All right, fine, then we
For
can
the
take them,
actual outdoor dining.
take them separately. We're going to talk about number 5, the cocktails and mixed drinks to go. Discussion?
Mary, if I understood you correctly, if we do nothing, it's approved by the state action. And so if we don't want it, then we would have to take action to not allow it, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Well,
Any-
Sorry, guys, I don't know what I missed, but I just got back on. I froze or something.
we're talking on
Okay.
item number five, Julie.
I just have a
Well,
question. Where,
Go ahead, Paul.
I have a question. What was the, what are the issues as far as the cocktail and mixed drinks to go, as far as, I know it's not normally permitted, but now they're permitting it because of the COVID, but this is not, we're talking about to carry out, to go back to your house. We're not talking about to take it out to the street where they're going to have the open seating, correct?
That is correct.
No. And obviously, there's some pretty stringent requirements for the business owner in order to even allow that.
Exactly. And after I read it, I thought, if I was a business owner, I'm not sure I'd want to go through all that hassle just to sell a few drinks. But I don't know. Seemed like very complicated and rigorous requirements for to allow it.
Chief White, have you had the opportunity to look at that and see what your concerns would be from a police enforcement perspective?
I think it would be just a matter of having concern with people not waiting to get home to open the drinks. You know, you have them walking out of the business after they get it, the possibility of opening it on the street and walking. You have the possibility of taking it in their car, drinking in their vehicle. I mean, they can do that with beer as well, but what type of what type of seal is going to be on the containers? And yeah, it's hard to say.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, they could open a beer from a grocery store or whatever. So I think those are, I guess what I was just trying to see is the language in there sufficient that there's no debate on whether it was sealed or the seal was broken. So that way there, you know, you can easily, it's no debate. It's either sealed or it's not sealed.
Yeah, it's either seal or it's not seal. It'll just be like if you pulled somebody over in a vehicle and they had an open seal. You can't debate that one way or the other, and it would just be operate a motor vehicle with open alcohol, or it'd be something similar to the ordinance where you're consuming alcohol in public. So I think that would be easy to prove either way.
Mary, you were in the meetings, right, with the businesses?
Yes, I was.
And did they talk about an interest in this, or?
This was actually not discussed at that meeting. And I know that meeting was on June 3rd, and this came from Frank at 4:09 on June 3rd. So I don't know, you know, why it wasn't, but this was commented. There are a lot of restrictions, and I really don't know that it's worth it for a business, but that's up to them. I would note too that it does provide that you can't get it by drive-through. I realize we don't have that in the village anyway, but no third-party delivery companies either.
Yeah, I think there's containers. I think the expense on a container that you can reseal has got to be prohibitive to the profitability of the company. Yet on the other hand, I wish I knew if our businesses were interested in that, because I want to, I'd like us to do whatever we can to help them succeed. I just don't know that this helps them succeed, but that's not our judgment call.
Right.
Well, and I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm inclined to oppose it, but in order to oppose it, we have to take action on it. By default, if we don't oppose it, it goes through. But I'm hesitant to take a firm position until we had any business feedback on it. So.
Yeah, I mean, as far as them drinking a mixed drink over a beer, I have a really hard time discerning the difference. I mean, they could have opened the beer in there, they could open the mixed drink in there. It's, to me, it's nothing.
Yeah.
But I mean, considering the fact that the labeling requires, you order a mixed drink, they have to put the name of the mixed drink, what the ingredients are, type, the name of the alcohol, the name, the license number and address of the retailer that sold the product, the volume of that's in there, the date the container was sealed, and you have to seal it no less than 7 days before. I mean, that seems like a lot of steps to go through for a smaller community, at least, where you're probably not going to have that many mixed drinks.
It almost feels like it fits the need of a high volume free cocktail or something, but. Well, I guess
I have a quick question, Mr. Elson. Was this part of the phase that when we go to phase 4, is this drop dead? Is that what I understand?
It says no, this particular one, this authority to sell the mixed drinks and the cocktails under those conditions, scheduled to expire on June 2nd, 2021. So basically for a year.
I guess we'll have to take a census of each trustee to see exactly what they would like to do. So.
Yeah, and there's another added point here. The 7 days, they can't be made 7 days ahead. So I don't imagine they're going to make too many ahead if they make any ahead, because once they take it out of the original container, it can't be put back in the original container.
That's right. And I have had no input from anybody who has a liquor license, who has the capability of making a mixed drink. I've not heard a word from them. Anyone? Have you heard anything, Mary?
No, I have not, and I've not heard anything from President Eubank to indicate that he had heard anything.
Well, I don't mind Don's idea. Do we want to go around to the trustees and just voice your opinion if you want to take any action here, or just let it go for state law?
That's right. I would like to do that.
Don, you want to start?
I don't think it's a good idea.
So you want to take action to prevent it from happening?
I would like to take action so we don't do it.
All right, Stan? Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Don.
No. That's right.
Who's next?
Dan?
Stan, what do you think?
Yeah. I would be voting against that to allow it to happen.
So you would not vote?
What?
Want to do take action?
Well, we'd have to take action to be able to say no.
Correct.
So I'm against the mixed drink thing, so
Okay.
whatever needs to be done.
All right, Paul?
Yeah, I'm against it. I don't think it's necessary to help the businesses. That the whole idea with the next item we're going to talk about is really to help the businesses. I don't see they couldn't do this before when people had to go order. So I don't see how it's going to help them. I mean, I see the need to add this at this time. So I would say no also.
Mike?
While I am not in favor of the mixed drinks leaving in vehicles and so forth, I am not prepared to make a motion at this time.
And my
He would let it
trustee,
stand?
what's that?
He would let it stand with the
I would
state?
let it stand at this time. At this time, I would not, I would obviously vote if somebody makes a motion, but at this point in time, I'm not in favor of it occurring, but I'm not prepared to make a motion at this time. So effectively, I let it stand.
Yeah, and for my opinion as trustee, I would just let it go as it is, and let the businesses decide if it's in their best interest or not, because I don't think it creates any more hazard or risk to the public than serving a beer to them and letting them drive away with it, which we're already doing. So I see no difference. So we've got a 3-2 vote.
But we don't have a
Well,
vote, we have a consensus.
Don't have a vote because it's not no motion on it, just kind of a guidance of whether somebody wants to move forward with a motion.
When do we have to have Mary, when do we have to have an opinion on this?
Well, it's, I believe, I'm just looking to see if for what he said, I believe it went into effect as of June 2nd, such that if you wish to take any different action, that's when someone would make a motion. If you do nothing,
So it already is in effect.
correct, it
right.
doesn't say the effective date on what I'm reading, but because Frank indicated that the governor signed legislation and it's dated June 2nd, that would lead me to believe that's when he signed it. This came from the Liquor Control Commission to tell us that. So I'm very confident that it would have been on or about June 2nd, so that it is in effect. And if you wish to do something different, you'd make a motion accordingly. Otherwise, you would do nothing, and until such time that you would change it, they would be allowed to have they would be allowed to go ahead with the cocktail and mixed drinks to be off premises.
Should
And
we
this is-
lay this over to the next month's meeting?
I think without the business input, I'm just concerned, what if somebody has invested money into some containers or something like that too? We don't really know what businesses even want to do. So, I mean, in my opinion, again, their hands have been tied enough because of COVID. Is this really gonna create a hazard or a safety issue with the public, which would be my main concern, and I just don't think it's any different than the beer. I mean, if anyone feels strong enough to make a motion, I guess that would be the next step.
Okay, it died for lack of a motion. Let's jump down and talk about number 8, outdoor dining, restaurants and bars. You all got the little map. It's been modified. So, Mary, do you want to take care of that? You were at the
Yes.
meeting.
Let me just get to the right page here for this. Bear with me a second. We should have the 6620 draft, that is the resolution authorizing temporary outdoor seating area for restaurants and bars and temporary partial street closing. Just to give you a little backdrop on this, there was a meeting that was held by President Eubank and I, Chief White there, business owners, which I believe is on the 3rd of June. All the business owners of Bentonville were invited, and there was discussion about, first of all, what their initial request had been, and that was to close Main Street. Couldn't do that because that's the street, as you know, that's for the heavy loads. So then we had talked at the county about closing the street in its entirety. The business owners were not in favor of that because of the fact that a couple of things. One, Caminos, they still have a fair amount of carryout, or a lot of carryout, because there are some people that still don't feel comfortable coming in and sitting in an environment. And then there was discussion with Flection's Hair Salon and their business and how that would affect their business. So that's why you see it dealing now with a partial street closing. And so that would in essence close half the street. That's why language revised accordingly. I had originally prepared one for Frank. He didn't distribute it, but it was his discussion when we would be talking to the business owners. And then I made the changes accordingly. And so what this in essence would do is close the west half of the 100 block of South Benton Street to allow for outdoor seating and dining for the businesses. There would be certain mandatory guidelines. Those are what are listed in Exhibit A. And of course, it would not give blanket permission to someone who does not hold a liquor license to sell liquor. And one of the things that was added in page 2 that you'll see in this one is I made specific reference to make sure that there was compliance with the American with Disabilities Act requirements. I had looked at some from other municipalities, and that was what was interesting to me. I didn't see anything about the American with Disabilities Act because you close streets, you close access, potential for lack of parking. And I had asked, actually Attorney Sosnowski, but I'd seen it in other ones, and I'd asked her, I was missing something, and she said, no, in their haste to put something together, they hadn't included it. But with the way that they were dealing with that was to make sure that in their permit it provided for review by the village engineer in the permit application in order to make sure that if there are any ADA issues, that those would be addressed. So
Yes.
also,
How many people were attended the meeting that you had,
sorry, say that one more
including you
time.
and Frank?
How many?
Yes.
Okay, there were several business owners. I can tell you, pardon me.
Several is not a number, Mary. How many were there?
Well, I don't have the notes in front of me, but I can tell you Mike Woolbright from the Scoop was there. There was a representative from Semino's, from Kennedy's on Benton, from the Post, from Hair Reflections, from the Treasure Store, from the Historical Society, Denise Ferracino, and I'm not remembering if I'm missing anybody else, but there was quite a bit of input from the owners or the business owners that were present. And that's why we had that discussion. And then what I had also given you, because that Exhibit A lists a lot of different conditions, and obviously if there's something that you don't want, then we would discuss that. I had also provided to you a copy that had been put out by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, which basically said these are the guidelines for restaurants and bars. So just to show you where a lot of these provisions came from that were used by both myself as well as other municipal council who had put it together. And,
Okay,
mhm.
I've got a couple of questions, Mary and Don. First of all, is your draft dated June 6th of 20? Is that the most recent draft, Mary?
It is.
Okay. Second question, the map showing South Benton Street, the block that we're talking about, that is an old map that reflects the street when we had it going both directions. You see the parking on the east side is going north and the parking on the west side is going south. We currently have all the parking is heading south since it's one way from north to south. And so your number 8, where it says establishments provide a temporary barrier around the perimeter, and then it says vehicular traffic being allowed to travel from south to north on this already established one-way street. It's north to south. It's not south to north. So the everything else on there, I believe, is correct. I looked at it this morning. The handicap ramps and the handicap parking is those, I think, are the right places. And but the parking would be heading south. And I think it's an excellent plan if with those, you know, little changes, but in clarifications. The only issue I see is the making sure that the businesses provide those concrete barriers between the traffic and the seating areas for their businesses. And on the traffic side, so that there are people that are sitting in the street are safe.
And I thought that there was something, maybe I missed it. Thought that there was something in there that referenced that.
Yes, you mean the concrete barriers? Yes,
Yes.
it's it's right there on as recommended, temporary concrete barriers, number 8, the same
Okay.
paragraph I was referring to that has that you need to reverse that. It's north to south
Got
is
it.
the traffic, and then the temporary concrete barrier is required on the traffic side. You know, right down the middle of the street. Basically, you're going to need concrete barriers in front of those businesses to keep cars from running into the people that are sitting there eating.
Right, right. The other thing is, I know that Trustee O'Rourke had brought up a number 14 about, and I think that can be clarified better, where each patron on the should wear face masks over his nose and mouth while on the premises. That was the idea behind it, except when eating and drinking while seated at the table. So that, of course, they can't. It's intended that they don't get up and go talk to people without a mask on. But while they're seated at the table, they don't have to keep taking it on and off. Certainly, if they want to, while they're waiting for their food, they could wear a mask, but they wouldn't be required to wear a mask. It's kind of when you're at that table, you're in your own little cocoon with your group of up to 6.
Yeah.
So that I would think, I think needs to be clarified. And just grammatically, I would have that read: each patron should wear a face mask over his or her, because it's keeping it all in the singular. But that's what I would suggest for number 14, that it would read: each patron should wear a face mask over his or her nose and mouth while on the premises, except when eating and drinking while seated at the table. And then exceptions may be made with health conditions.
Is there any fire requirements or for ambulance movement?
Well, that's where
going up?
that's where you get into the review, because on the actual application, I have provided for review by the village engineer, the village public works director, the village police chief, as well as Windber Sioux fire chief. And what Frank's idea was that when the applications would come in, that they would be immediately forwarded to those individuals for commentary. So that if there were something or there were an issue, then it could be addressed and considered by him or his designee when making the decision whether or not that permit should be allowed, or if there needs to be some modification in order to allow it. I will also say that the intent, as I understand it, is to have tents. That's why we have a provision in here that they just occupy their own storefront area so that somebody doesn't hog, so to speak, but that if there's an agreement between them, if you've got Seminos and Kennedy's or the Scoop and Seminos and they want to share, that's fine. It's just we didn't want to have it where some tents go up and then it's kind of a free-for-all. Whoever gets them, and then some restaurants would get none. So that's why that was worded that way.
Yeah, and Mr. Elson here, I like the plan. I think it very adequately provides for the non-restaurant businesses to have access to their businesses. The barber shop and the dentist office and the Emporium, the historical village town hall, the preschool. Lord willing, the preschool will be open this fall. You know, so I don't know. This will be expiring though when phase 4 starts, correct?
And well, this is what I did. I put on there that it terminates when phase 4 of Restore Illinois begins. But of course, if you wanted to extend it, you could do that. But most of what I had seen had it expire when phase 4 would begin. But like I said, you can, right now, that, to me, that's what goes along with the governor's plan. And who knows what may come in the future. If in the future it's extended, then I guess a municipality could decide to extend that as well.
The only other question or thought or thing I think we need to think about is enforcement. As I will tell you in Rockford, it is hit or miss. You know, they don't really have to put on my mask to use your restroom. No, go ahead. You know, everyone doing it their own, and I'm definitely for it. But I think maybe Jeff, you have to really kind of have a decision or how, how strict we're going to enforce things and how to communicate that with the businesses. I mean, and obviously we have to enforce it, but I hope that doesn't become an issue.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, we've had a good discussion about this one. Do we have a motion for the resolution for this? Then we can have a little bit more discussion.
Well, and I think that Trustee O'Rourke, since you're acting as the president pro tem, you want to find out, I guess, if they would be in favor of passing it with those revisions or not those revisions. And what I'm talking about specifically is just making it clear that just while they're on the premises about the face mask wearing, not certainly while they're seated at the table. So and then also making that correction, of course, in number 8, going from north to south.
Right. So any further discussion on that? Would you like the resolution with the amendment as Mary just identified? Any opposition?
And
Okay.
we need to know, did we get a resolution number? And do we have
didn't get a motion yet.
we get a motion? I didn't think so.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-09R.
09R.
With the amendments that we talked about.
With the, talk about amendments to paragraph 8 of the Exhibit A and paragraph 14 of Exhibit A.
All right. Do we have a second? Anyone want to second that motion? I'll second the motion. This trustee.
Sorry about that. I put my phone on mute, so I guess you guys didn't hear me.
Any further discussion on that resolution as amended?
Yeah, the only question or confirmation I would have on there, and I did read through it. It was quite a lot before I was ready to hit the road, but I thought there was something referencing a 20-foot tent or something to that magnitude. It's not quite 20 feet between the curb and the end of the parking on either side of the street, and with big trucks and everything, we need to make sure that those barriers don't extend beyond the outer reach of one set of parking.
Well, and that's why when they submit the application, they have to give the dimensions of the tents, and that goes for review by the village engineer and the village public works director, so that they can indicate whether it's appropriate or if it needs to be different size or what the situation is.
Okay, well, it sounds like that would be covered during the due diligence process then.
That was the intent, at least.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, because we got to have room for at least one full lane of traffic behind the parked cars on the east side of the street. Between the barrier and the parked cars, you got to have a full lane. So a fire truck or a semi could get through there.
Well, and also Seth Gronwald, I know he had sent copies of the Benton Street project that had the whole layout of when it had been done. And, you know, there's things that he'll be looking at too, I'm sure, as far as the ability of a car to back out, because you got to have a certain distance. So that's why we have provisions for the various professionals who know different aspects to look at it, to make sure that while trying to help the businesses, we're making sure that everybody else is safe as well.
Any further discussion? And is this a roll call?
Morgan, Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Elson,
Yes.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
Hey, Don, anything else?
Oh, yeah, we got a lot of things to talk about yet. How are we coming along in the solar electrical system ordinance, Mary?
Honestly, with everything going on, have not been able to get to that. That had to go on the back burner, unfortunately. But that will come back up now.
Okay, well, we'll do that. And the garbage contract, we had voted in committee that we would, I think I was going to get, I've got that here. I'd like to, where did I put it? I'd like to read it. Yeah, a second. Let's see. Okay, the motion was made by Mr. McKinnon, seconded by Ms. Morgan, to recommend deferring garbage sales, or no, that's the other sales. This is the one. Recommend the negotiation with the present refuse hauler for a new contract, provided a favorable rate can be achieved. Motion carried by a voice vote of the committee. So it's from committee. We'd like to continue on with making that contract viable. I don't know who's going to negotiate the contract, but I think Frank did the last one. So I'd like to have a motion that the board puts that we. What's your pleasure on our garbage hauler?
What's your motion?
Motion would be that we retain the same garbage hauler.
Is this from committee or from you?
It's from committee.
Your motion is to retain if we can negotiate a favorable rate for the next 5 years, correct?
Correct.
And we don't need a second. Okay.
I'm sorry, Paul, were you a second?
We don't
No, we
need
don't
a
need,
second.
if it came from committee, you don't need a. So.
Mary, is
Okay.
this a roll call?
Can there be discussion for just a second?
Yeah,
Yes,
because
there
I
can
just
be.
want to know what kind of vote.
It will be a roll call because we're talking about negotiating regarding money.
Go ahead
I'll
now,
just-
Julie.
I'll just make the comment that I made in the cow. I mean, I don't know anything about garbage haulers or how many there are or why we should, but 25 years with the same is a red flag to me. And I don't know how many haulers and how much effort it takes to renegotiate versus go out for an RFP, but 25 years just seems like a long time with the same provider.
Of course, that company's changed hands about 3 times, so you're not
Oh,
dealing with
so
the
it's really
same
a
people.
different provider. And I will note that I don't think we've heard complaints in a large part by our citizens, which is important too. So that's just my
true.
only comment. Anyone have any further comments?
Well, I guess if the negotiations don't go favorable and it probably have to be done in short term, we could always then
draw the line, say, folks, you're being unreasonable. You've given us no alternative to, go out for bid at that point.
Yeah, I think my
Correct.
concern with that though, Mike, is that how do we know they're competitive if we haven't gone out in so many years? I mean, if we have another way to do that, to find out what others are paying, that's another route we could go. But how do you test the waters when you haven't tested the waters in a long time?
Well, it comes up every 3 years or something like that, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, but we've
5.
never tested the waters outside the current vendor.
And they're getting fewer and fewer. Okay.
I mean, there's
Anybody
certainly
else?
nothing to prevent the village
I would,
having Kelly check with other small municipalities and who they use and what they are paying. That's not a request for proposal, but at that point, if you felt that there needed to be something more done, then you could.
Thank you, Mary.
I can speak a little bit to that. I mean, I was involved in the last, not negotiation, but examining what the proposal was 5 years ago. And, our individual rates are significantly less than the non-resident rates. We have a group contract. Now, I granted, you have to look at the group contracts that other villages of similar size have and what kind of deals they get, but that's not hard to find out. It's not hard to find out at all. Sally Bennett, I'm sure, could find that out in a very quick hurry, what other municipalities are paying, what rates they're paying. But we actually negotiated a lower rate 5 years ago than what we were paying in the previous contract, and we got a discount for senior citizens, and we got 2 garbage cans, the barrel blue cans, if people wanted them. So I think I understand that we need to do our homework, we need to do due diligence, but I think that was done the last time, certainly. I think the only thing with that, Paul, is somebody could argue if they lowered it, were they charging us too much before? Yeah, well, our garbage rates are pretty reasonable from what I've heard on others. But yes, I think one way or another, we've got to get some market information to know where we're at after a 25-year period of time. I would agree with that. So maybe before,
May I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to say I would be happy to email some other treasurers and see if they're willing to tell me what they're paying. A lot of times that's not always a perfect way because, we have to have the exact population, how far is it from the garbage company to, because they have fuel costs and things. And I think that Freeport location has always been something that they've liked Winnebago because of our proximity. So if you have any suggestions on who I should ask, I'd be happy to do that.
Paul, would you have any specific ideas on that since you were involved the last time around?
You mean, no, I just agree we should probably try to get information from some of these other communities, Stillman Valley and Byron, and I can remember when we didn't have a citywide contract, and we were all hiring individual. There were 3 or 4 different garbage companies that were coming through town, and the rates were a lot higher than what we were able to negotiate as a group. So, and that's why we did it. And to save the streets from 4 different garbage companies coming through town every week instead of just one, so that was the whole impetus back then. But yeah, I know we can get that information from these other villages. It's public information. I mean,
Do you want to back that off until the next meeting, or do we want to have a vote tonight? It's already been passed by the committee.
Sorry, I was muted. And I laugh at everyone else who does that. It sounds like we want to do a little more digging is what it sounds like to me.
Okay. Well, then do we want to use the wording that Mike had here? And the recommend negotiations with the present refuge hauler for a new contract, provided a favorable rate can be achieved. That's what we're voting on. Motion carried by a vote of the committee. So it wasn't saying we're going to do it. What we're going to do is we're going to go into negotiations with them to see whether or not, and that opens the door so that the different municipalities, I know Davis has guilds, and I think Pecatonica does too. I think so. I don't know. But that would be a good idea, but at least it opens the door for us to negotiate with them, to see that and do our homework and make sure that we are getting a good deal on it. So that's the way it is. So I guess, Sally, it's up to a vote.
The only other comment I would make is that this particular garbage contract expires in December. So you still have, some time, in that if you wanted to find out information first before you decided to do the negotiation, you could always put it over to the next meeting if you so desired.
Yes, that would be yeah. I'm all for getting a good deal at anything we purchase or buy, but we have about 6 months to go, so it's not something we have to do. So is that consensus? Would you like us to lay it over for next meeting, or what would you like as a board to do?
You'll have to withdraw the motion if you're not going to vote on it.
I would.
Mike and Paul, do you want to give it another month for us to do some due diligence, or?
Well, I think we need to do some due diligence, but somebody's got to decide who's going to do that due diligence. Sally certainly offered, she could make a couple contacts there or whatever, but I mean, we basically need information to do that due diligence. And so, if we don't decide it tonight at the next, committee meeting, you got to decide who's doing what to get the information to make a decision on.
We could table the motion till the next month and then try to get more information and then make a better decision about whether we want to move forward with a negotiation with the current company. If you want to put that.
If that's a consensus, I'll withdraw my motion.
Or you can just table it.
Yeah, I'd be good with that.
So is it withdrawn or tabled?
Table
it.
I think we have to vote on tabling the motion by the rules of order of the Roberts. I think we have to vote on the table.
I believe that's
do.
correct.
Is that right, Mary?
Yes.
So
Is it a roll call?
Roll call.
We don't have to do a roll call. I don't believe for that.
okay, all in favor of tabling the negotiations with our current garbage hauler for till the next month? Say aye.
Aye.
Motion. Aye.
All right, motion carries and we're tabled. Don, anything else on your list?
Let's see. The only thing I have on my list would be new businesses, and we'll turn that over to Mike because he was talking about the sidewalks and so forth. Mike, you want to talk on the new business?
Well, I was intending on taking it up at new business later, but if it's permissible, it kind of does overlap community development. Mary, is that okay if I bring it up here?
Yeah, that's fine.
The only thing I wanted to bring up is we've been talking in, both the community development is we identify items that, where permits are required, and presently we don't have permits for sidewalks or driveways, so it kind of fits in some of the activity there. But it also becomes an item in Public Works because they frequently have to administer this. The sidewalk is basically been assumed to be the owner's responsibility. However, in past, the village has provided some policy dollars towards sidewalks and so forth. However, it's fairly limited funds, and it's really not a clear-cut direction on who you help, how you help them, and if you're first in the line, you might get it. You're last in the line, you don't, which is certainly not the way to operate a village. But this is kind of taking a surge because the curb and gutter is a village responsibility, and many of our subdivisions are getting older. In particular, the Meadows, which is probably 25-ish years or whatever. And because of the age and possibly because there might have been insurance settlements on driveway damage, there is a surge of activity of driveways being done. And we have at least 3 of them at the moment where the driveways have been excavated. The owners are prepared to have the blacktop re-put on there. However, the curbing is all damaged, some of it because it really wasn't done correctly 25 years ago, but we've inherited that. So right now we have 3 people looking to put driveways on, and they're looking for answers to the village on if we're going to fix the curbing before they put the driveways in. And depending on the width of those driveways, we're looking at somewhere between $800 to $1,000 per driveway. So we're looking at upwards of $3,000 to fix 3 driveways right now, not driveways, but the curbing on the driveways, which if we get really creative, we may be able to try to maneuver some stuff around in, Public Works. But if we do that, that's $3,000 we won't spend for something else. But at the same time, if we fix these 3 driveways, are we prepared to fix dozens of others beyond this, which we don't have funding for? So at a minimum, trying to figure out where funding might be available within the village in a very difficult year with COVID-19. And certainly as we go forward, somehow we've got to create some budget for these type of repairs going forward, because, with, many subdivisions in excess of 20 years, this is going to start accelerating.
Yes, very true. I have no curb and gutters, and I have no sidewalk. So
well, we always got that argument too. We always got that argument too with those that don't have the curb and gutters. They're saying, why are we paying to put other people that have curb and gutters? But you know what? That was the ordinance that was in place at that point in time. But,
you're right.
Now the $3,000, the $3,000, does fall within my authority as the the chairman of Public Works to approve. But I guess I'm just looking for some feedback, from the group as a whole. Where are we going to find this money?
Mike, I have a question for you, Dan. Are they like widening the driveways, or what is it? Is the curb where the cut concrete is falling apart, or
That's
what?
Correct. That is correct. They did not do a proper job back in the development stages when they cut out the curbing to put the driveways in. Looks like somebody beat the hell out of it with a sledgehammer rather than do a nice clean saw cut. And then over the years, it's chipped away and everything. So you've got 15, 20, 30% of that curbing that doesn't exist anymore. So basically, the residents are simply have had their existing blacktop driveways excavated. They're now getting ready to put the new blacktop in. Usually they would kind of, seat that in against the inside edge of the curb, but it doesn't exist. And 20 to 30% of the curbing along the width of the driveway. And I can forward some pictures out that Chad has sent to me. Again, this kind of came up today when a few residents started hounding them because their driveways are excavated and they're lining up the blacktop to be put back down. And kind of it's
Chad, are you on? Is Chad on?
Yes.
Oh. Is there a way to do a new saw cut is it, how, I mean, is it pretty deep
No,
to
it's
where
a,
these are?
it's
Go
an
ahead.
improper installation that the village allowed to happen during all these subdivisions. I sent Mike a series of pictures that I've started to send off to Kelly. I actually emailed one direct to you when you asked. The saw cut should be done horizontally and then into the back of the curb so that the flow line where the water travels is not disturbed. And the contractors, the builders, the excavators, it's not easy to do if you don't have the right kind of saw. So they cut right into the flow line and bust it out with sledgehammers or jackhammers. It's very poor. It's very rudimentary. All of the ice and freeze thaw cycles happen right there. So all of the property owners' driveways fail as well as the curb and gutter. I'll apologize. I did take pictures today. I did sent them to couple of them to Kelly. I sent all of them to Mike. He's traveling. It was very, very late in the game. It's been a difficult situation, but I will say probably 65% of the driveways in the subdivisions that would include the Meadows, Resch Farms, and even some of Greenlee have this improper installation technique, and it creates a large problem. It makes the curb and gutter fail where it should not fail. It shouldn't have failed for 70 years, but because of the improper application, they're failed completely. What we've done to this point, due to lack of a way to fund it, we've done a service in kind for the people. If they are having a concrete driveway put in, it's of course less costly for them. We remove it and they have to put it back. But like Mike was kind of saying, we do holistically own the curb and gutter. We do have the sidewalk situation is a little different. The village ordinance from 1976 and before, and it had not been updated. We have not been able to find the sidewalk program in print, but the sidewalk ordinance says it's the property owner's responsibility to maintain it. Again, we do the same thing with that. We offer in-kind service. We will remove it and prep it so that the homeowner can pay to have a new one installed. We do small repairs if we have to remove a tree or if a water line is broken in the sidewalk, we take care of that. But these curb and gutters are just ridiculously expensive, and it's at $800 to $1,200, and that's with us doing the lion's share of the work of the removal, the jackhammering, and then of course the price is higher if the homeowner's not doing their driveway replacement. Then we've got a patch, an asphalt patch we have to do in order to get the removal done. So it's really a large nuisance, and of course once people see us starting to do it, there'll be more requests. But it is optimum to do it while these driveways are being done. I don't know if logistically it'll work out here. We've had the same conversation with people. Our budget simply does not allow money for this. If we're not doing a road project, that we're going to throw in a quantity of curbing replacement. We do not have funding to do onesie twosie curb replacements. We would like to. We obviously have no reason to be against it. And again, historically, since I've been the director, we have gone in and offered the removal, allowed them to conduct the replacement. But aside from that, it's only been done on street projects. And again, if a street project doesn't make the budget, that gets nixed from the project.
And I guess I just went ahead and I sent one of the 5 pictures that Chad had forwarded to me to all the trustees and Attorney Gaziano, just so you can take a look at it. And I guess it really comes down to, at this particular point, is, as Chad indicated, many times these are addressed in a street project, and the response maybe is, folks, yes, it's a village responsibility, and it'll be added to the list, and when the funding becomes available for that street, we'll take care of it. and deal with it again in the future. And well, sorry, we can't tie it together with your driveway now, or, you know, we can certainly take care of these 3, but I don't know how many more would potentially come in behind it, which could really put us into a budget situation.
And the closeout on that, the caveat to that is typically when it goes in the street project, your curbing cost is usually, the low number is about $60 to $75 a lineal foot. It's C&G R&R, curb and gutter remove and replace. If we do the removal and have it ready for a contractor, that's where it gets down around the $40, and then it's all about quantity. Like I talked to Mike, it's a little bit more of the technical aspect. If we do one, that's typically probably going to be 3 to 3.5 yards, which is called a short load, which now concrete is really expensive. Short load used to be under $300. Now it's $450 to $500 for the material. And if you look at our budget, the dollars just aren't there.
Well, and let me add one other thing, just so a point of reference. I don't know if anybody has had the opportunity. Hawkins would be the most recent road we did when we've done a major road. But when we go ahead and if we have to repair curb and gutter at that point in time, we end up cutting in 2 to 3 feet of everybody's driveway and repairing those driveways as part of our road project. So, you know, you save it on one hand, you lose it on the other.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a question. Does Chad or Mike, you know, for future development, for future houses and stuff and driveway installations, is the correct procedure for installing this gutter and curb in our UDO? Is the requirements to make it right in the beginning? Is that covered in the UDO?
Yes, and it would also be something we would do in the review process. But the way that the plating and everything works now, like if you were to go to the Highlands, they're formed in when they're doing the original pour rather than doing cut-ins. But yes, there is a standard specification we require. But second response to that is why we have been discussing and considering a permit process that would include this. And it's very typical. City of Rockford has it. It's very cut and dry. It's not real expensive. It's $15 to $25 for what's called a curb cut. And that's where, you know, the people doing it have to present. And to answer Stan's question, if the people wanted to widen them, we get probably 20 or 30% of the people doing work call and ask either if a permit's required or what's required. Then we try to catch contractors on scene. We can't be everywhere all the time. There's been some backlash on the request for those permittings, but realistically, I think we're gonna hammer down on it in committee. Mike and myself had done a lot of work on this a couple years ago, and I think we just had some other things get in front of it, and I think we really need to light it up and have it included. And I know there's further discussion of who will administer the permitting, who will do the review inspection, and it very well may be our department because we'll be the best versed in it. And it could also create some revenue, but it wouldn't really, due to our economy of scale, we'd probably only have 800 or less driveways, so we would never get enough permits to create the money to do repairs of all of them that need it. But short answer to your question, Paul, is yes, it is addressed within the UDO. It is addressed within standard construction practices. Second part of that, people still do it wrong. We've worked really hard. We watch it very closely over the last 5-6 years, and it has not happened since then, but it was happening up until then. I will say even Greenlee has these improper cuts. Again, when it's cut right in the flow line, you can't ask for a worse scenario.
Well, here to bring this to a close, you know, it is something within the spending limit of the chairman of the committee, which is myself, and so Chad and I can kind of work on this, and we can't really act upon it at this meeting because it wasn't on the the agenda, but seeing that it's within my spending level, just for a gut feel of it, I would just ask for, kind of a feedback from the 5 trustees on the phone. Would they prefer to take care of these 3 driveways, which is probably about $3,000, or advise the residents that we are not able to do it at this time and it'll be addressed on a future road project? I'll start, and I'd say pick the 3 driveways.
I
Julie?
guess my question is how many other driveways then would follow with all the storm damage and stuff? I don't know if driveways are going to be big. It sounds like there's more people replacing them, and how do we turn the people away if we start with 2 and 3?
Well, again, that's the big unknown. But, and that's why
Yeah, Mr. Elson, I would say fix the 3 driveways. I know it's kind of setting a precedent, but ultimately the village is going to be responsible for all these things. And I would say that going forward, this is a hot item that needs to get in the budget. We need to get a line item in the budget, the street budget, to help this, to start a program for this.
I guess, Paul, I was concerned about the precedent also, but I guess it would be the same as every year when we allocate which roads we are doing. We may have 3 roads that need to be done, and we choose to be done the one that's most important, and we just have to advise the residents on the other 2 that it'll be dealt with at another day. I guess that's kind of where I'm leaning on this one is we have 3 that are, in imminent paving situation, So it's not really that we're setting a precedent. It's our responsibility. Just when we do them now, do it later, and and all of a sudden 3 more come up, next month or whatever, we may have to decline. So yes, we'll fix them, but we'll have to fix it next year or the year after. And yeah, we may have to go and cut into your driveway to make the clean line or something. But just trying to get a gut feel of how everybody feels on the approach.
I would say fix them, fix the driveways.
Stan,
bite the bullet.
Yeah, I'd say get them fixed. I just looked at the pictures that you sent. Looks like the blacktop's breaking apart there too because of the water and everything getting in there. So, isn't that over in the meadows?
That's over. That's over in the meadows. Yes. Fortunately, the driveways in Greenlee. Like I said, my driveway is due for replacement, but fortunately, it's cut correctly. So, when it comes time to do mine, I don't anticipate there. And I really have not seen that condition in Greenlee as I'm walking around. I don't get into the meadows too often, but I guess on my future bike rides and walks, I'll start paying a little closer attention. Don, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think go ahead and fix them. It's one of these decisions that you pay me now or pay me later, but you're going to pay me. So that's under your jurisdiction. You have the capability. As long as you've got the money to cover it, go for it.
Put it this way, it's a rob Peter to pay Paul. Something else somewhere is not going to get done as a result of it. But
yep.
I see Sally Bennett's been waving her hand. Sally, do you have something to add?
We do have $1,500 put aside for sidewalks in the streets budget. I know that amount is usually $5,000, but I think over the past several years, we haven't been using it. So we've been, putting it in other places, but there is something there. So it's 50% of what you're asking for.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess it will take, we'll probably end up taking that, and we'll take the other half from the road maintenance or whatever. And, and again, obviously we know we're kicking the can down the road, but we've got to give these people an answer one way or another. And I guess fortunately for them, they're sooner rather than later. And the guys that come later, we're probably just going to have to decline, just won't be in a position to do it. So, but we'll still take it on a case by case basis to, based on what the budget allows. And again, we will just have to push this particular issue a little harder in the 2021 budget.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I've got 2 more things under new business. Number 1, I've gotten a lot.
Give her opinion.
Oh.
Julie, you didn't have an opinion.
Oh yeah,
sorry,
I was
Julie.
one of the first ones to talk. I'm okay with it. I just raised the issue of saying yes to some people and then no to others, but I get it. So that was my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you. Thank you.
Okay, I've gotten several telephone calls from several people that want to know when we're going to open things up to being able to have garage sales or different other type of estate sales and everything else. And we've discussed this in committee, and we thought we'd put it off until maybe sometime in July, but I've had no real directions either from the governor or just what else, and what that fits into, because there's no clear direction as far as I can see of where they've said about garage sale, other than you must be able to stay your 6 feet away. Any input from anybody about that?
I can tell you that we had gotten something from Frank that I think Kelly had gotten. The long and short of it is that from the DCEO, they said that garage sales are not considered businesses, so they weren't making a formal stance on it. But what they thought was, as long as it was less than the 10 people or less, and that there was social distancing, that they didn't see that that would be a problem. So they basically, weren't coming out and saying, yeah, go have a bunch of garage sales, but just leaving it up to the individuals.
Up to the individual. Where would we get the guidelines from, Mary?
Well, I'm looking for the email that had come, because Frank, I think, had asked Kelly to look into that, and she did, and that there was an email, but maybe it didn't go out to everyone. And Kelly, if you have it, I thought I had put it in with what I had, but the information that had been received was that, in essence, they weren't making a formal opinion, but they were saying that we think.
Just be careful. Okay, all right. I just want to know whether is the from a legal opinion, is if somebody calls me up, they can have their garage sale?
Well, again, they're not making a formal determination, but they're not going out there policing it either. So it appears from what is being said by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity is that it's up to the individual, as long as they do the appropriate social distancing guidelines. And I will forward you once I must not have brought it home with me, but I can forward you what we had received that gave just what I just told you. Naturally there are other concerns for people, but that's up to them to decide, in the sense that when you go to these sales, there are people touching items. It's not just the number of people. But that, to me, then that's a risk-benefit analysis that's done by both the person holding the garage sale as well as the patrons.
Yeah. That's the reason why I just was looking for some direction. And the last one, I understand we have somebody here from the 4th of July. If they have something to say, we'll take it under new business. Is she still on?
I believe Denise Sparacino is on.
Okay.
Denise?
Microphone, maybe?
Sorry, I was on mute. It took me a while to get to it. Do you have a question for me? I'm sorry.
Did you have any inputs? I'm taking this under new business for community development. Do you have any input you'd like to put in?
He was talking about 4th of July, Denise, just so you know, if you didn't hear.
No, I guess for the Historical Society standpoint, and for, I guess the 4th of July committee, we're just kind of on hold until, we'll start planning for next year. But as far as the Historical Society, that is one of our big fundraisers for the year, was the garage sales. So if that's a go, that we just make our own plan and try to follow the guidelines I think that would help us. But yeah, I don't really have anything else. I know with that meeting that Frank had called, the Historical Society, we're just a little different than the businesses. We don't have normal hours. We're not selling anything. So we're just trying to come up with a plan for fundraising, so we can still pay our bills.
Right.
And Denise, I'll include you in that email that I send to the trustees, because again, it's not an official opinion like the other guidelines, but I'll give you what we got. And then I guess I can't give a formal legal opinion because of the fact that there hasn't been something formal coming down. But Frank did ask that if that information be obtained, and I can get you what we got, and then you can, I guess, act accordingly or consult with the Historical Society's legal counsel or whatever you feel is appropriate.
Mary,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I just sent you the email from the DCO
Okay,
regarding the garage sales.
thank you, because
It just stated these technically are not businesses, so we're not going to give official guidance on this. I would leave this up to the local jurisdiction, is what it said, and note that so long as there are no groups larger than 10 and people can keep 6 feet distance, there shouldn't be a problem. So that's from her name is Annette Fulgezi from the Department of Commerce.
and that's what I was trying to, parrot from memory, but the gist of it is that they're saying it's a small group, but they're not talking some large, wide-scale sales. I put that to you.
Yeah. Thank you so very much, Mary, and I hope that answers some of the questions about the garage sale. So that's it as far as the community development is concerned.
All right, Mary, going on to village attorney.
Okay, we already covered the resolution. That was a different portion of the agenda. The only other thing is then part of your packet is the COVID-19 outdoor seating permit application that I did allude to previously. That one's listed the 6/5/20 draft. That again was a one and only draft. And just to point out, that's where on page 4 is what I was talking about for the review, that it would be going to the village engineer, public works, police, and fire so that they could make any commentary. Please note also that it does list on the second page about the site plan details that need to be provided, and that plan must be drawn to scale. Now, that doesn't mean they have to have a professional engineer, but it has to be drawn to scale with dimensions also listed, because otherwise the village engineer wouldn't be able to give some sort of opinion having to do with the ADA requirements. Now, because he's not necessarily going to have maybe all of the grading and all of that, he might not be able to give as much, but we just want a general idea to make sure that we are not violating any American with Disabilities Act, either parking or access requirement, because regardless of what a state decides and what rules that Governor Pritzker says are no longer going to be applicable for a certain period of time, a state cannot violate federal law, and the American with Disabilities Act is a federal law. Also, one of the things that I wanted to point out is that when they sign this document on page 3, this is a signature that also involves a hold harmless agreement to make sure that they are listing the village of Winnebago as an additional insured, and that they are defending the village against any liability unless it was something due to the negligence of the village. Because remember, they are extending their area out to a public road, and because of that being extended out to a public road, that would normally be village liability. And in essence, what we're saying is, no, you need to have And that's provided in the rules that they have to have something added on to their insurance policy as a rider to indicate that they would have coverage for that area, liability coverage, and then also listing the village as an additional insured. And oh, I can tell you too that both as to this permit, proposed permit, as well as the resolutions, I had asked Frank if he wanted a copy to also go to the business owners, understanding it was a courtesy copy, it was a draft, could be subject to change by the trustees, and he did want that done, so that was sent out to them. I did not hear any feedback from anybody, but it did go, both of those documents, as they were given to you, were also given to all of the business owners on the 100 block of South Benton Street. And of course, they were also invited to this meeting, just so that they wouldn't be shocked that all of a sudden, okay, there's this resolution passed or this permit, and then there's all these requirements that we didn't know about. The one other thing I wanted to mention is that we will have an actual permit that will be issued, just like when we issue a liquor license or something. I want something up on the establishment just to show that they have this permit for the outdoor seating. But once this is reviewed and approved by the village president or designee, then they would be issued the permit. The other thing is, when we had our meeting, Frank had indicated that he was hopeful that should this pass the board, that it would be able, the process would be able to be completed such that hopefully they would be able to be doing this outdoor dining by this coming weekend. So this will be an expedited process, attempting to be. That's why as soon as the applications are going to be made available tomorrow, I did tell them, don't use this one that has draft language. It won't be accepted. We have to have a clean one, because I wanted to make sure that everybody was using the same form in case the trustees made any changes to the form. That's all I have on it.
Questions on the form or concerns, suggested changes? Mary, do we have to vote to approve this application then, or?
Frank likes that done. I mean, technically you don't have to, but he likes to approve all of the various forms, so it's clear that the trustees are on board with what we're doing. So I would suggest that there be a motion, and it would only need to be a voice vote.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the application as presented?
So moved by Mike McKinnon.
Is there a second?
Second,
for
Mr.
John
Kimes.
Paul. Sally, did you catch who seconded that?
I thought it was Mr. Kimes.
Okay. Any other discussion on the application? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Sounds like you're good to go.
Yep, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to finance, I'll keep this brief. I think we're in decent shape considering our COVID-19 pandemic. Too early to tell. We haven't felt the full impact, of course. And Jeff White was kind enough to try to put to the police question that came up in the committee meeting. I can't remember if that came up in police or finance last week, but just to share with the group, I think 10,000 plus or minus, I don't, Jeff, 10 to something like that. If our existing full-time officers took all of Randy's shifts, and that's not how they will be, but that's a worst case scenario that we have to use all our full-time officers, that would add 10,000 in costs. But when I reviewed the budget and the police salary lines, we still have wiggle room just because we've been short-staffed, a problem that we hope to resolve soon. But from a financial standpoint, again, we need the coverage. It's one of our duties to have police coverage, and we have room in the budget as far as I can see. Dale, do you have any updates or comments that you want to make on the budget? I didn't see anything necessarily out of line or worth mentioning. She's shaking her head no.
No, I don't have anything to add. I just stand behind that email that I sent with the revenues. And I still feel like we're just waiting to see this month where we're going to be hit. But I do know, without giving any information other than just that Sullivan's is really doing well. And I only know that because I've been given the information that I need to do the tax rebates. So I'm hopeful that what we do have won't be that bad. I still don't know the ratio of what businesses cover what percentage of our sales tax, but I imagine that Sullivan's is probably the top one, if not in the top two. So that gives me hope. And that's really all I have.
Yep, I would agree with that. I guess under.
This is Paul.
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
This is Paul. We're going to be okay. I paid my taxes today.
You pay mine?
Thank you.
Also under finance, Mike McKinnon wanted to move the attorney bills down from the consent agenda. So Mike, I'm going to give you the floor here.
Yeah, I guess I was just, when I looked through there, and again, maybe this has already been vetted by others, but I just thought it appropriate. I see that on the attorney bills, there's a lot of things that are aged, and I was just wondering, was there a reason that those got missed in the past, or what exactly is the situation on those, Mary?
Are you talking about the traffic bills or?
Yes. In particular,
Yeah,
I think they were all.
Yeah, I had sent in the traffic bills and I believe they inadvertently got put in a drawer. And I didn't say anything last month. And then, so then I just, one of my billing clerks said, well, where are those? And what has happened in the past, what I have typically done as a courtesy, what I've typically done as a courtesy to the village is, because I have I bill by different categories, and there's the traffic bills, that I give a reconciliation document. I don't think any other vendor does that, but it's something just so that they can compare. But it's intended just as a comparison, and if for whatever reason it didn't come, it doesn't mean that the bills don't get submitted. But I think that's what happened, and that's part of it.
So those were submitted to us at another time and got lost in the shuffle and didn't get paid, as opposed to you digging through your archives and realize you didn't bill us or something.
Correct. They're based on whatever date is there. Those were the dates they were submitted.
Well, I only scanned them really quick as I was getting ready to hit the road, so I just saw a bunch of 19 dates, and so I didn't, and I didn't want to have some level of concern in my background and then just approve it in the consent agenda without saying anything. So with that in mind, I guess I will make a motion to approve those bills as they would have been if we left them in the consent agenda.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Elson.
Anyone have further discussion?
I would just like, I guess, to make one clarification, because this is on the traffic bills, just so you see when you are doing them. And I see that it used to be with the traffic bills, just so you know, that they were billed, because that is billed at a very low rate. That is billed by that's kind of my gift back to the village. I billed it at $75 an hour, which basically just covers my employee costs for those. And it used to be that we did those when the matter was completed. And sometimes it would be over an extensive period of time, because you'd get different motions and things like that. You'd think a little traffic case wouldn't do that, but they'd come back on motions to vacate and things of that nature. So then we tried doing it where Frank liked it, where it was, to try to keep it more current. so that then we did it where it was based on what was going on in a couple of month period. But I will tell you that there were a couple of bills, and I think that Newen Buell was one of them that I see did go back kind of to the old system. But typically now you're going to see, that's why you see different dates paid and all of that, that on a given traffic case, there may be 3 bills over the case, over the course of the case. But I just wanted to clarify that as to the traffic bills.
And I think
And
another
those
reason
also
why,
I'm sorry?
I think another reason why that might have caught my attention is typically in the consent agenda, you know, usually your invoices are just basically identified as either an invoice less than 5,000 or over 5,000. It's seldom that we would see the detail. So then all of a sudden, when I saw the detail there, I was kind of curious of what was going on or whatever. So, but you know, obviously you've already answered that now. So.
Okay.
If I might say, that was a miscommunication in the office and not any fault of Mary. I had finished my report before I knew that there were bills. So we were trying to have the best of both, where I wouldn't have to redo my entire report and Mary could still be paid. So that's why it was so odd from what we usually do.
Well, we are human, but obviously we need to do our due diligence. And when something looks odd, if we don't question it, then we're not doing our job. So I thank you for the follow-up on it.
Okay, so we heard a motion and a second to approve Mary's bills. Oh,
Money.
is that a roll call? I'm sorry.
You ready?
Yep.
Mr. Elson,
Yes.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan, Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes. Okay, that wraps up finance. Stan, please.
No, we don't have anything. You already covered it as far as the overtime, so that was submitted to you last week. That's all.
Any progress at all on the part-time officers to report on, or Jeff, or no?
Now we're trying to get a hold of the guy supervisor that we're trying to hire. Last name is Macias. Having a little difficulty reaching his lieutenant from the fire department. So as soon as we get that going, we should be moving closer to getting at least one more part-timer in here.
Okay, thank you.
I see Randy's home.
Oh, yeah, Randy. I did text him. He said he was out walking on the bike path when I texted him. How is he?
He's doing very well. We had to tie him up when he went over to their house to put a tree in the ground for him because they couldn't do it themselves. But B says he's doing very well. He's back to old Randy, and they are out walking and exercising. He does get a little winded fairly quickly, but he recovers fairly quickly as well. My understanding is there probably won't be any return to work or even talk of return to work for at least 3 months. But he is doing very well physically.
Oh, that's good news. I'll give him our best. I try to, but we'll make sure he knows we're all thinking about him.
No, we say hi to him from everybody when we go see him or talk to him, and his cards for him keep coming into the village, so I keep delivering them.
Cool. Good deal. All right, do we have anything for item G, administration team?
No.
President's report was in the packet. I haven't been prepared anything with reopening the office for the public. Does anybody have anything to speak to, Kelly or Sally? Are there plans to reopen the office, or?
No, just a question of when that might be considered is all.
My assumption was that it wouldn't be until the end of the next stay-at-home order, but I haven't heard anything.
And Mary, there's nothing on it has to be open or anything like that at this
No,
point?
we want no direction in that regard. Has anybody heard any significant complaints? Or does it appear to be working with how it's been done?
No complaints that I know of. I know that several communities have opened their village halls and community offices, so, but we've not heard any complaints. People seem to be adapting.
Okay. Well, at this
I'm
point-
going to stay here until you tell me I have to go back.
Well, I think that's something that Frank will take up with you at some point in the, I don't know how much future, but at least the next few weeks. All right, I'm just going to skip number 3 altogether because I think there must have been a mistake on the agenda. So let's go on to number 4.
You can't do number 4 without 3.
Well, okay, all right. Well, Paul, if those of
Is
you have,
Jeremy there? Is Jeremy on the line?
no, he is not.
I didn't think so. I never heard his name or anything.
And I can tell you the reason is because he did get deployed for a short period of time. And his meetings, he's in Chicago and his meetings are at night. So that's why he cannot join the meeting. And Frank had
Well,
asked me
if-
if you could accept the resignation of trustee Elson without the, installation tonight of Jeremy. And yes, you can. You can accept the resignation. You can vote on Jeremy, but the actual swearing in of him does not have to happen at this village meeting. And it can't because of the circumstances that I just stated.
So, Mary, is he going to be available then or not?
Yeah.
I mean,
He
I'm not
will.
talking about, I'm talking about longer term.
Yeah, no, this is, this apparently just came up and it is for, according to Frank, I don't know any of this firsthand, but anticipated a week could be up to, I think he said 5 weeks. But I think it's more anticipated a week, and I do not know the nature of the deployment, but that's what Frank said to me and asked about whether or not he could be, voted on, but not sworn in tonight. And I said, yes, that's possible.
Okay. All right, then I'll ask you to help walk me through what I'm supposed to do do we have to vote on accepting Paul's resignation or?
Right, that you vote, basically you indicate in the record that you've received a resignation letter from trustee Elson dated whatever date it is and whatever else you want to say about that. And then you vote to accept the resignation. I guess if you didn't vote to accept the resignation, I don't know what you could do, but to force one to stay, maybe as an emeritus board member, but that's what you do.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, for those of you who don't know, obviously I did receive that letter from Frank today. And Paul, thank you. I can't say enough about how much you've helped me by just sharing all your experience and past history. And I'm sure everybody feels the same way. So we will certainly miss you and miss your expertise. And I hope you'll allow us to tap into your expertise from time to time. But I do thank you for stepping in at a last minute notice when Jeremy was called up before. So I guess I have to let you go, even though I don't want to let you go. But I guess call for how do I call for the vote to accept this resignation?
You can say, you can do it by way of a motion if you want to accept the whatever date resignation of trustee Elson. And then someone will.
I guess I'll take a motion to accept the resignation of trustee Elson effective today, at the end of the meeting.
I regrettably will make that motion. Mike McKinnon.
We have a second?
Don will second it. I want to ride your airplane, Paul.
Comments. I'd like to get in the public record that I just want to thank Frank and the trustees for allowing me to serve, and it's been an honor. And also, I'd like to get in the public record that I'd like to thank Jeremy for his service to our country and his service to our community. I know he'll be a great asset again to the village and the village board. And lastly, I'd like to thank Frank for commuting my sentence to time served.
All right, so thanks again, Paul. We have a motion, we have a second. I think this is an all in favor, Mary, or
Yes, yes.
all in favor of accepting Ms. Trustee Ellison's resignation, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, then technically now we have a vacancy and the trustees could decide that they wish to nominate someone to fill that vacancy. You do have a certain number of days to do it, but based on the agenda, it appears that you have someone that you want to nominate to do that. And I know that individual is not able to be at the meeting tonight. And just for the record, this was Jeremy Graham, who had previously served as a trustee, being duly elected, and then was called for service to our country and had to resign that position because he did not know how long that service would be. And now he's back, but is now just on a temporary jaunt, as I understand it.
Mary, was the motion to make the nomination, or technically it's an appointment by the president? So are we basically just motioning to approve the president's recommendation?
Correct. The president pro tem is now going to basically, I'm sure, say that she would like to nominate Jeremy Graham to fill the position of trustee that has been vacated by trustee Ellison. And then voting someone to make a motion to approve of that appointment.
Okay.
And it's technically the village president or president pro tem makes the appointment with the advice and consent of the village board.
Okay, so I would like to recommend that we consider reinstatement of Jeremy Graham, the trustee who vacated his position to serve, and now is available and interested in coming back and joining as trustee to fill trustee Ellison's spot here on the board.
And Mike McKinnon will motion to confirm that appointment.
We have a second.
Stan Malagranda seconds.
Okay, all in favor of reappointing Jeremy Graham as trustee?
Aye.
Aye.
And then Mary, as I understand, I will go ahead and swear him in as soon as he and I can get together with
That
a
is
witness.
That is correct. And then what we can also do is if you would like, because I know sometimes you have somebody from the newspaper notified and they take a picture, or you take a picture and send it into the newspaper, you can do it at that point. Or
Okay.
if you want to do something to affirm it, or like another formal one at the board meeting, you can do that as well. But his appointment would be effective as of that swearing in. If you did something at the board meeting, that would be purely ceremonial.
Okay.
All right, on to future meeting dates. Public Works?
The only Public Works said July 6th at the last meeting,
That's correct.
4 o'clock. Police,
To be determined.
Finance,
Well, since I'm the only one from finance here, I guess it's a TBD.
Community Development is
To be determined.
obviously 4th of July is still TBD. Liquor Commission,
I
To
believe
be
that's
determined.
Steve, right? Stan? Okay.
Errant Water would be July 13th before the meeting if needed. Admin would be to be determined. Whipsy is July 15th. Peck Prairie Path, anybody know? Winver Sioux training. And the only other thing, do we have a committee of the whole coming up? Will we do it in August or not?
It would be in August.
I had a calendar once.
I'm pulling mine up. The next committee of the whole shouldn't be till August.
August 3rd,
Uh,
first Monday.
Yes.
4 o'clock, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
okay, thank you.
I'll bring the cake on the 3rd. It'll be my birthday that day.
Oh.
Who said
I
that?
hope we're off the, I hope it's a physical meeting by then.
Yeah, really.
Cake isn't very good virtually.
That was Jeff White. That was Jeff White, by the way.
We recognize your voice.
It's lower calorie though, Sally.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Any new business then?
I will
Hearing
make a
none?
motion to adjourn. Mike McKinnon motions to adjourn.
Second? I'll make the second. Yes, trustee.
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Good night, all.
Aye. Thank you,
Thank you.
Paul.
Julie, did you have a question of me?
Take care, Paul.
No, I said thank you, Paul.
Okay, I thought earlier you started to say you had a question. I just wanted to make sure I didn't click off without answering it.
Not that I can recall at this point anyway. All right.
Aye.
Sally Joe, you still on?
Yes.